Last week I posted a video of me using our new Paperpot transplanter, and that brought out a bunch of questions as to what that's all about. And so what we're going to do in this little video here is we're going to talk about what the Paperpot transplanter is, what we use it for, and why we're using it, but also how, so we can really show you the nuts and bolts of like how's this actually working. But I want to start off just by talking about the why. So the why is that some plants basically grow better if they're transplanted. Things like, for us, it's things like broccoli and tomatoes and romaines, things like that, which just because of a number of factors are going to do better as a transplant than they would directly seeded. Particularly, it helps us to extend our seasons, whereas things like arugula, you see here arugula, and there's cilantro, and over here you've got radish. Those things do just fine direct seeded pretty much year round, maybe less so in the heat of the summer because we're in the cool season cropland. Really what it's about, if you think about it, is that we have about 40 beds this winter. I want to use that as an example. We have 40 beds that are each about 50 feet long. And if you extrapolate how many days that we have to have things in the ground in those 40 beds, it equals 14,600 bed days. At the end of the day, when you're transplanting something, you're basically shortening the number of days that plant is in the ground, taking up bed space that could otherwise be used for growing. In other words, there are some crops that are, because they're better to grow from transplant, that really means that they get faster to market for us via a transplant and less days that they're sitting in the ground kind of doing nothing or germinating. It also eliminates a lot of problems that we have in our some things that take a little bit longer to germinate, like carrots and romaine. Sometimes the weeds actually outpace the growth of what we're actually trying to grow, which creates a whole lot more labor. And so since there are things that are going to transplant better for us and allow us to use those 14,600 bed days more efficiently, right? So if you transplant a romaine, just as an example, instead of 56 days from seed to harvest, I can knock that down to about 40 days. Which is a 25% reduction in the number of days that romaine is actually taking up bed space. And instead we're using that in our nursery where we have plenty of room to grow things in a high intensity kind of way. And I'll show you that here in a minute. So really it's about arithmetic, maximizing the number of days that things are in the ground. And then the other part is just labor. We can grow transplants in a number of ways, and we've been doing it in the same way that we do our nursery starts here for the last 2 years. And really what the problem with that is it just takes too long. And so if I'm going to seed a bed, or I'm going to transplant a bed of romaine lettuce, and there's going to be 250 little transplants, they're grown in a little cell, and then they put into a little pot, and they wait a little bit, and then somebody has to physically put in each of those 250 things, meaning we're bending over, opening up a hole, putting that plant in, moving on to the next, which also brings in all sorts of things like error. Like we have an entire bed right now that was planted in error. I just misread the notes, and it was something that was supposed to go out for the nursery, and it went into the ground. And so then you have a 75-day mistake because you're growing broccoli that you never intended to. And so that's one of the reasons we do this as well, is just to eliminate human error. So the Paperpot transplanter, by contrast to those 250 transplants that might take us, I don't know, an hour and 15 minutes or so for one person, or maybe 45 minutes or 30 minutes for two people to do that, I can do that with the Paperpot transplanter in about 15 minutes. So it's kind of saving us time, and it's saving us labor all along the way. I will say that it's a little bit more of an expensive process. It's change for us, and change is always expensive. But we think in the long run, it's really going to be worth it. So that's the why that's behind it. And I know maybe that was a little bit too detailed for you, but now we're going to get into the how of how we actually do it. Okay. All right. So I'm in our seed starting area, also known as our garage. And I just wanted to start off by showing you kind of the finished product. And so this is a Napa cabbage that's ready to go. Right, it's ready to be planted, and that's in contrast to actually the same thing next to it. It's also Napa cabbage. These are in larger ones that we'll have to do by hand. So we're going to get started, and I'll show you how we seed a tray next. Okay, so the core component is these things right here. These are our paper chains, and they grow. These are basically, each one of those little spots is going to be a place where a baby plant grows in the nursery. And that all starts off with one of these, a paper chain. a chain pot. These are all manufactured in Japan and imported. They're really cool. And so yeah, you basically put that into the frame, and this is actually in a seed tray. And then now I'm gonna fill it with soil. Okay, all I've done here is made sure every cell has of our seed starting mix in it. Nothing special, just our regular seed starting mix that we use with everything. Okay, so the next couple steps are just straight up time savers for us. And so this is our dibble board. And basically all that's gonna do is pop a little hole in every single one of the 264 holes so that the seed will easily drop in at our next step. Okay, so the next step is actually, we just put a seed in every little hole. See that? That's our pelleted romaine seed, and cover with soil, get it wet, and I'll show you the last step. Okay, the last thing we do is treat it like everything else. We put our tray on the stack onto racks here, and then I'm actually gonna put about a quart of fish emulsion in there to kind of jumpstart everything. We use bottom trays. So the bottom tray wicks the water up into the top tray. And then, yeah, in about 20 days or 15 to 20 days, we'll have transplants ready to go of romaine lettuce. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the Paperpot system. And really what we like about it here at our little farm is we're basically playing to our strength. The thing that we do better than most is that we seed start, and we're a nursery first. And so that really helps us jumpstart things here by doing it in a controlled environment, so that when we transplant stuff, it's very strong and ready to go out in the field, which is something that we're still learning how to do. So yeah, we're just playing to our strengths with the Paperpot system, and so far so good.